You're listening to the God Life Culture podcast, where faith
and what's trending collide. Welcome back to the latest episode of the God Life Culture podcast. This is Eddie.
What's up, everyone? This is Miguel, and we are so thankful that you are tuned in to another episode of the God Life Culture podcast. We are so excited that you are listening, and we want to remind you and take this opportunity for you to subscribe. Hit that subscribe button wherever you are listening to our podcast so you can be notified whenever we drop a new episode. And thank you so much to all of you who have left reviews, who have left ratings. This definitely helps put our podcast in front of more listeners. So we definitely appreciate all of you who are showing us love and who are joining us on this podcast journey. Eddie, how are you feeling today?
Today's a great day. It's one of those days where you had 401 things happening at the same time. But at the end of the day, everything was able to get done. And the great thing about busy days are that they do make the day go fast. You know, there's something about slow days, especially slow, boring days, that just feel like they go on forever and ever and ever. And then you have those other days that are like completely hectic, and then you blink, oh man, it's already 6 o'clock. Where has the day gone by? So today was kind of one of those days. There's a lot of things happening at once, but I'm just super excited to be here for today's episode. How's everything with you?
Yes, everything is going great. I can definitely relate to what you're saying about just having those jam-packed days, right, from beginning to end, but definitely grateful for it all. And today we are very excited for our guest because we, I was reminded of this a few days ago. At the beginning of this year, we kind of had said to our listeners and made a goal, right, to have different voices come on the podcast and share and be a part of it. And, I think we have been doing a great job in getting different guests on our podcast to talk about, different projects they're involved in and different things they're doing. And today is no exception. We have a worship leader that is joining us today, and he's going to talk all things worship. We're going to get into, some of his videos and things that he is currently doing. So listeners out there, please welcome to the God Life Culture podcast, Osby Berry. Osby, can you please say hello to our listeners?
Hello, everybody. This is Osby here. I am beyond excited to be a part of this podcast. Thank you again to Miguel and Eddie for inviting me. This is going to be exciting.
It definitely is. And one of the things that we always like to do with our guests is ask them the very first question, which allows our listeners that may not be familiar with them or kind of know them from a video and can't put the face to the name. Sometimes a lot of that stuff happens, to describe themselves a little bit. So for those people that may not know who you are, how would you answer the question of who is Osby Berry?
Man, it's very simple, man. I'm just a guy from Ohio who just so happens to love God, love family, and love his people. That's just who I am, man. And it's very simple, cut to the point.
Now, have you always lived in Ohio?
Yes, I'm born and raised, Cincinnati, 513 all day.
513. Same way that we rep, like I'm from Brooklyn, so I'll rep like 718. Out there in Ohio, it's 513.
Awesome. So now currently, what is the weather over there in Ohio?
Well, actually, I no longer live in Ohio. I live in Oklahoma now, but I'm currently in Jamaica.
Okay. Really? Look at you.
So the weather here is amazing.
Nice. Okay, and I'm here thinking, it's like 80s here in New York. Like, this is like really nice weather. Okay, over there in Jamaica, enjoying. That's great. Can you speak a little bit on that? I know, we're going to dive into everything that you do and all things worship, but the importance of taking some time to rest and relax. Obviously, you are in Jamaica. When we think of Jamaica, when we think of places like that, we think of like vacationing, the beautiful beaches, the beautiful weather. How important is it to disconnect and take some time to rest?
It is very crucial. I'm a strong believer in that you cannot pour out from an empty well. So that taking time like this to kind of just reflect and time to meditate and fully like hone in and fine tune our ears. And sometimes, just like with a car, you have to get it oil change, you have to get a tune up. So it's maintenance, and that's what taking time away from everything and everyone. Although I am here for a ministry trip, but I got a couple of days to just relax and do the thing or whatever. But it's important to take that time to like really hear the voice of God about what to say, what to do in the next.
That's awesome. One of your videos on YouTube, on your YouTube channel that you put up, you were talking about worship, and your title of the video was very captivating, right? And it seemed like, oh, what is he about to say right now,
I know
right?
what
And you
you're talking
posted a video on your channel saying that you were done creating worship moments, right? And
about.
then obviously that everyone started clicking on that video like, what is he talking about? No, is he done? Like, what do you mean? And you spoke about, instead of creating worship moments, creating a worship atmosphere. So
Yeah.
can you speak a little bit about the difference between creating a worship moment and creating a worship atmosphere?
Absolutely. Atmosphere and moment are very, very different. And in the context of a worship service where I was here, oh, let's gather our minds in. Let's bring in the moment. And with any moment, it passes. But I would rather create an atmosphere where the Holy Spirit can just really like live. You know what I mean? And it all starts at home. Like I would refuse to or I wouldn't be the worshiper that I am today if I just, you know, worship on the stage rather than worshiping at home, because
Hmm.
it's very hard, it's very hard to lead people to a place that you haven't been.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very, very, very hard, and people will notice that you haven't spent time with God. And I truly like I tell anybody that if your private time with God will show up in the public. So if you're
Hmm.
not spending time reading your word, if you're not spending time worshiping God, if you're not spending time like listening to God, it's going to show in how you talk to people. It's going to show in how you lead your people. It's going to show in how you treat people. It's going to show up in any way, shape, or form. So it's important that we create create the atmosphere at home, and then it'll translate to the stage or to the arenas that we're ministering in.
Definitely. And I think one thing that those who tune in to church services, right, and or go to church, right, they see worship leaders on stages, on platforms, big churches, they may even see you lead worship at Transformation Church, right, Pastor Mike Todd's church, and they may see that service and tune in, but they don't see, I guess, everything else that it takes, right? Because being a worship leader is not just the time that you are on that stage or the time that you are on the platform and singing those songs. There is preparation that takes place both spiritually and also just in your craft.
Yeah.
So, how do we develop that balance? Worship leaders out there, how do they create that balance where they're focusing on the act of leading worship in the moment, right? In that arena, in that church, in the congregation, and also making sure that they're kind of living out that lifestyle of worship every day?
And you just said it right there. It's a lifestyle, and I know that we heard that worship is a lifestyle in the context of the church, but it truly is. It's how we live. It's how we operate. It's how God created us to be. And one of my friends mentioned, we have talked about it a long time ago, but he said that worship is two parts. It's one part submission and the other part adoration.
Hmm.
When you're submitted to something or someone, that means you're showing your love to them. And when we worship, that's what we do. How, like you said, going back to what I said, is how you talk to people, how you love people. That's how you worship. And people think that worship is just this emotionally long, weeping song, and it's so much more than just the song. It's so much more than just the music or the chords that we play in here or the 1 4. It's more than that. It's literally how we can. I don't know if you ever heard the term that praise is the vehicle, but worship is the destination. I'm sorry, praise is the destination, but worship is the vehicle. That's what drives us into the presence of God. That's
Yeah.
what leads other people to the presence of God. Like, once I think we have to kind of demystify the worship right now. Like, it's amazing because a lot of people ask me like, oh, how does it feel to be with the Maverick Cities and all this and that, which is great. I'm not like, I love Maverick City. Shout out to Maverick City. That's the fam. But I don't want to mislead people in the idea of idolizing worship too. That's a dangerous place to
Yes.
be. Like, we cannot idolize worship. Worship was never meant to be idolized. Worship was meant to be a pure form. The word says that he's looking for worshipers to worship him in spirit and in truth. And we have to lead people in that truth. How can we do that if we don't even know the truth about ourselves in him? If we don't know who we are in him?
Absolutely.
And
And you know what?
we find that when we worship God.
Yes, 100%. And you know, one of the things that, you know, there's a lot of things from what's been said that I kind of want to like jump all on. But I do like the idea of making two things noted. Number one, that the idea of not to idolize worship, you know, which I agree with. And these are conversations that Miguel and I have also had as well, where there is this thin line or like this slippery slope when, you know, it goes from liking the style, liking the music, or liking the flow that's being put out there to now all of a sudden fanning out. And
Right,
then the issue
right.
with that is that you're fanning out because of the individuals and not because of the God they're trying to lead you into worship with.
Exactly.
You know, and he's like, I seen a couple of videos around and stuff, and I'm like, that looks a little tricky.
Yeah, and
Um,
I even want to speak into that. Like, and if I can be really transparent, can I be transparent on your podcast?
Absolutely,
Yes.
yes.
It it really bothers me when people come up to me and say, "Oh, you did this amazing job, da 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 da," or "Hey, look, here's Osby." Da, da. Like, I never was the one. Like, I'm always the one that serves in the background. And
Mhm.
the Lord just so happened to unveil me when So Will I went out and push me into the front. So a lot of attention is like, I don't want the attention to be placed on me, but the God that lives on the inside of me. That's what I want people to see. And like
No,
you said, people like attract to that.
yes. Yeah, and I think, you know, you hit it right in the head too with the you know, the video that went viral with you back in, I think it was about 2018, of you singing "So Will I," you know, was actually a video that I myself saw, enjoyed, was like, oh yes, Lord, have your way, God. And you know, it has over 45 million views. People, you know, famous people like Justin Bieber have also, you know, shared the video. It was all over social media, you know, and it was actually a moment. You know, and it was a moment that brought a lot of people, you know, to an opportunity of worship. It brought a song that maybe a lot of people were familiar with, but just came from a different place also, because brother, you sang that from deep within.
To God be
You
the
know,
glory, man.
so it was definitely a great thing that did go viral, you know, especially in the age of technology. There's so many crazy, you know, non-good things that go viral in the world. To have a video like that go viral
Yeah.
is definitely great because of the reach, which, you know, a lot of times us, you know, when we're in ministry and stuff, you know, we just do what God sends us to do, and then he's the one that, you know, plants the seeds, how, you know, wherever they fall.
Mhm.
But here is an opportunity where you are actually aware of the reach that this moment, or, you know, this moment in time where you would just, you know, absolutely what's the word? I don't like the word is in Spanish. I can't think of it in English.
What's in
Like
Spanish?
like,
Surrendered.
yeah, there you go, surrendered.
Surrendered.
You know, that you can actually see the numbers and the people that have seen it. So let's talk about that a little bit. When this happened back in the day 2018 or whatever,
Mhm.
what did you think of the moment?
Honestly, I was just doing what I've always done. People just, like I said, people just so happened to be introduced to what God has already done in my life.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I wasn't looking to be the next big thing, and honestly, I just want to touch that too, because a lot of worship leaders are trying to be that person or the girl or the guy.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to be very careful, because with being that person, you don't know what that person had to sacrifice. You don't know how
Yeah.
many tears they had to cry, or how many times they were overlooked and undervalued, and overutilized and all these different things. And like, I was just serving. Like, I was literally at a youth camp with no intention of putting this. We had no intention of even putting this out. We just wanted to just throw something out there just to have in the YouTube space. And the Lord just happened to breathe on it. And like I said, I still don't know to this day how it happened, but I know I can say that it was nothing but God.
Yeah, and that reminds me of that saying, you want the glory, but don't know the story.
Absolutely.
Which is like a very like Christian lingo thing to say, but it is very true. It is so true that a lot of people see something like that happen and don't understand what it took that individual to get to a place in their life, whether it's a place where they could be so vulnerable and transparent and open with God in their worship. Mm-hmm. Because that's not something that you wake up and are like, oh yeah, today's the day I'm gonna do that. There's a whole process.
Absolutely not.
There's a process that goes into that.
Yeah, and I love what you said about being, you were just serving, right? And being obedient at that youth camp. And I think so many times people are waiting for their moment, right? So they're waiting for, that invitation to go to this church. They're waiting for, that camp to happen. They're waiting for this, they're waiting for that. And they're neglecting kind of the small opportunities to serve in their local church or to serve at a youth camp, to maybe serve somewhere where there's only 50 people, 100 people in the crowd, and your moment, right? That viral moment that, God kind of used in that moment of time, you were being obedient where you were. Right. Yes. And I think it's a lesson that, our listeners, we can learn from, the idea of being obedient where we are right here and right now, even if that's not our final destination, even if that's not where we want to be, where, where we dream of being, right? If that's where God has us at that moment, let's give our 100%. Right? Our 100% in worship and in service, because again, we just never know what God has planned and what he is going to do with your obedience in that moment.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you nailed it right on the head. Like the word even says that despise not the small beginnings. Like you don't know what that one act of obedience will unlock. You know what I mean? And I even want to speak into something that you said about going out to different things, different venues and stuff. I want this to be very clear. I hope that the listeners are hearing me very clear when I say,
yes,
please do not confuse opportunity with assignment. I'm going to say that one more time. Please do not confuse an opportunity with an assignment. And let me break down what that means. If you're given the opportunity to go, I'll even use this as an example. You've been given the opportunity to go to Jamaica, but you didn't consult with God about it. He didn't assign you to it, but you still go. Something will happen there in the opportunity, but God's hand won't be on it, because why? He didn't assign you to it.
Yeah.
When we can shift our mindset from chasing opportunity and then being led by assignment, or where God wants to place us, that's where he can get the most glory out of it. And it doesn't matter the dollar amount. It doesn't matter how big or small the venue is. First of all, you have to have a relationship with God. Let's just start there. If you're not talking with God at this point, what you doing? What are you doing to life? Like, you need to take time and talk to God. Like, talk to him and literally like ask God, like, hey, this is what happened. This is what's going on. This is the opportunity that I have. My flesh wants to jump at this, but what do you say about it? And allow God to give his stamp of approval, because when his stamp is on something, the glory will be even greater. And it won't be for your glory, but it'll be for his. And we chase opportunities so that we can be seen on Instagram, or that we can be seen on YouTube doing this. And we just chasing. We're chasing, right? But God's like, I want to place you somewhere that's already yours. But this could be yours, but you haven't even consulted me about the opportunity, right? So it's so important that we shift our mindsets to that, so that God can truly develop our discernment, truly develop the relationship and the rapport that we should have with God. Like, when doing that, like, literally, it's for me, it's even got to a point like, Lord, what do you want me to wear today? Okay, do you want me to wear these shorts? No. Okay, they're too short. All right, let me go ahead and put these pants on. Like, it's gotten to the point where I literally involve God in my everyday thing. And did it happen? Did it happen right away? Of course not. But over time, it's like building a spiritual muscle. When the more you talk to God, the stronger your prayer life will be, the stronger the relationship with God will be. And that's where He wants us to be. He wants us. He just wants us. Like that's all He wants. Like we overcomplicate what and who God is. Like He is everything that we want Him to be, and He just wants us to be in His presence. Like the God who can heal, the God who can deliver, the God who can set free, the God who is still making ways when there is completely no way in our life. He's beckoning us to come into His presence. That's it. That's all He requires. He requires us to be in His presence.
Yeah, and I mean, just hearing you talk, you sound again like an individual, a worshiper who has grown, who has learned from experience, who has learned and matured in his relationship with the Lord. And I think that is the goal as well, even for worshipers and leaders that are out there. There needs to be that growth, right? There needs to be that maturity that we reach. And looking at that video, from 2018, and I know that was kind of the way you were introduced to so many people at once. Looking at that video, what has God, or what have you learned, I'm sorry, about God, today in 2021 that you didn't know back in 2018? What has God taught you, or what new, facet of God's character have you tapped into that today that you didn't know back in 2018?
Wow. that's heavy. This season right now is okay. I'll start with this. And this could be someone that may be listening that may understand where I'm coming from. There's a tension that's happening right now in the body of Christ where we know what God has said, right? But it doesn't match to what we see. And it's the tension that okay, God, I'm trusting you, but this don't look right. Like you told me that XYZ would happen, and Lord, you told me over here that it would happen. And for me in this season right now, God has literally been stretching to the point of breaking my faith with Him. Like there's situations happening in my life, even currently, where it's like, Lord, I do not know what you want me to do, but not my will, but your will be done. And what happened with me doing that, with that posture, that's where God can be like, okay, I can trust you. And the more that God trusts you, and the more that you put your trust in Him, it doesn't matter what man has to say. It doesn't matter what your checkbook looks like. It doesn't matter what your circumstances may look like. I always say, if God said it, then it is settled. You don't have to worry, question, ask Google. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to do any of that. Like if God made you a promise, and that's where I'm at, is trusting the promise of God. Like that's where I really am. Like trusting in the word that He declared years ago, and He's making it. He is a man of His word. And wherever He sends His word to, the word says it has to come back complete. It does not return back to Him void. It does not. So if God told you that you will be healed, if He told you that you will be set free, if He told you that you will be the curse breaker in your family, if He told you that He's pruning you and he's carving you out. Yes, it's painful. Yes, it hurts, but these are growing pains to develop you. Lean fully into that. And my pastor Mike, shout out to Pastor Mike. He always says that this season right now is cutting season. Two things are going to happen. You're either going to be cut on or cut off. The scripture says that a tree that bears no fruit will be cut off, and to get nothing else. But if a tree is bearing fruit, that means it can be cut on, and from that cut, it will produce more. So I would like to pose a question to the listeners: are you willing to be cut on? Are you willing to be cut on by God? Or are you willing to cut yourself off by disobeying God?
Wow. And I mean, I love what you're saying. As you're talking, I'm looking at Eddie over here and I'm like, shaking my head because these are conversations that we've had and, things that we are also living as well, right? I can definitely agree and attest to everything you're saying about being in being in the middle, right? You're not where you were, but you're not at your final destination. You know what God has said, but you're not seeing it completely yet, right? You're trusting that promise. And just this week, I've kind of been, reflecting and meditating on that, on trusting the promise and trusting the promiser, right? And I think
Yeah,
there is a difference between trusting God's promise and trusting God, right? I can focus so much on the healing I am praying and desiring for, the healing that God has promised me, but am I trusting the healing or am I trusting the healer?
mm,
Right? It's
come on,
like,
that's
and I think
good.
those are moments where we really do need to reflect, where it's, I want that financial breakthrough. I want that house, Lord. I need this, I need that. But it's like, am I trusting the promiser to be Jehovah Jireh in my life?
Yeah,
And I think that's the difference, where even, worship leaders and those who aspire to be worship leaders and lead people into the presence of the Lord, it's like when you sing Waymaker, Miracle Worker, when you sing these songs, which by the way, you did post a video of it not too long ago. So listeners, go check that out if you haven't, right? When you sing those songs, it's not just, lyrics. It's not just saying these things. You will have to live it,
yeah,
right?
oh,
And
yeah,
you will have to be okay and willing to not only sing those lyrics but live the lyrics and know that, what, I'm singing it on this stage with so much power, anointing, authority. I'm declaring it. I'm looking at all the cameras. I'm getting all the right angles, right? It's taking in all my worship. But when I leave this place, I have to live out the fact that he is a waymaker. I have to
yes,
trust
sir.
that he's a miracle worker. And I have to believe that even when I don't see it, he's working. So I think, again, this is where, I think many people just get stuck on the moments. They get stuck on the titles and positions of, being worship leaders and being, youth leaders and youth pastors and,
Yeah,
senior pastors, associate pastors, all these things. And they forget that there's just so much more than, the 40 minutes that you're on, that stage leading people into worship. This truly is your life.
you said a whole mouthful. Like, you're, like, literally, that's really been my heart lately, is just trusting in not what he can do, but just simply who he is. And I think, like, if we can, like, really dismantle that kind of thinking of, like, okay, I know that he can heal, but am I worshiping the healer, like you said, or I know that I'm in need of protection, but am I worshiping the protection, or am I worshiping the God who can protect? It's yeah.
Now, one of the things, there's a lot of stuff that, and I hope people are taking notes, because this is a really great conversation, and especially a conversation that I feel, like you said, it's something that's really like happening. And I think, while it could be happening to everybody, but I think specifically a lot of leaders, whether it be worship leaders or ministry leaders or whatever in the church, are kind of finding themselves all in this weird position.
Mhm.
And I think that it is a situation where it could be, the Lord is testing my faith, and, the Lord, is just checking me out, making sure that, I'm serving him for who he is and not for what he could provide me with.
Yeah,
But I also think that we have to be wise and understanding that the enemy is also watching and likes to take advantage of these opportunities, because it's so easy for us to, grow a grudge or get upset with God and become angry, because things aren't happening the way that we thought they were going to happen. And we're like, Lord, I've been doing this for so many years. Like, what's up with me? What's going on?
yeah,
So it's very important that our listeners, anybody, make sure that you can be able to check yourself. That when you find yourself going down a lane where you're allowing, bitterness to enter into your heart, where you're allowing anger to enter into your heart, that you cut that out. We're talking about cutting on and cutting out. Cut that
hmm
out of your heart immediately, because
yes,
that sets root into your heart, it's going to be very difficult to pull that out.
Yep.
So it's just a word of advice. Another thing that I also wanted to say was that this advice that we're talking about does not only pertain to worship leaders.
Mhm.
So for our listeners that are out there, even the simplest thing about understanding the difference between a moment, creating a worship moment, and creating a worship atmosphere. Those are things that everyone has the ability to do, whether or not you have a great singing voice. You can set up a worshipable atmosphere at your house by yourself, in your car, on your way to work, on your way to wherever, and really dive into how you were saying about developing that conversation and developing that ability to have that communication with the Lord. So everybody listening, should be really taking heed to those words and applying them, into their lives. Switching gears just a little bit, because we're speaking so much about worship, and you've given us great advice for worship leaders out there as well. One of the things that I've always been curious about is about collaborations.
Mhm.
And as a worship leader, there's already a bunch of collaborations that happen there between the musicians, between the rest of the worship team, if you have a worship team as well. And then also, if I'm not mistaken, I think you were on an album that was released last month, with Worship Mob, Cross Worship, as well. So when it comes to the idea of collaboration, it sounds fun, but I do think that there is a level of patience and understanding that goes with that as well. So,
Mhm.
what advice would you give to anyone who is about to enter into a collaboration with someone else?
Oh my God. um, I would say again, just make sure that you're assigned to do it.
Yeah.
Because like again, it sounds fun to be assigned to all these big names, but if God is saying, okay, I don't think you should do that, then just don't do it. I don't care what the percentages are, because again, we have to think business here too. Like there's
Mhm.
percentages that comes with it. There's cuts that have to become. There's all the royalties and blase blase. So like all these different things. And if God is like, okay, the numbers look good, but is my hand on this project?
Yes.
That's the main goal. So yeah, make sure that you consult with God about any collaboration, big or small. If God said do it, then go for it. If He says don't, then nah, fam, I can't do it. And it's just simple as that.
There are moments where even God does God stamps his approval up, down, left, right, and center on it, but there may be things that arise because of maybe different personalities,
Mhm.
different work ethics, different creative spirits. Not everybody is creative the same way, not everybody thinks the same way. So if there is a moment of, all right, Lord, I know you told me to jump on this, but something where maybe people are bumping heads, or you're not able to get an idea out there the way that you want to get it out there, what advice do you give to those individuals?
God is not the author of confusion.
Mm.
Simple as that. If it's too much back and forth, if there's tension between the artist that you're trying to collaborate with and who get this cut of the song, is not worth the headache. Believe me,
But
it's not worth the headache. It's not worth you losing sleep. It's not worth you losing your peace. It's not worth you losing your witness. Like
yeah.
it's not worth it. So I would strongly advise, like, if you feel it's God and it's causing too much tension and friction, it's not God.
Okay.
I love that. And I think again, it's important because whether yours is a worship project or just something that you're coming together to do with a friend, there's always going to be those times where you're just going to have to realize, like, okay, God, is it you? Is this you? Like, what should I do, right? And I think collaboration is something that's beautiful, and unfortunately, I think because of lack of discernment, lack of wisdom, and seeking God, we sometimes don't have the best experiences. You
Mhm.
know. And switching gears completely and talking about something a little different. You posted on your social media just a few weeks ago that you and your wife are expecting, and you announced that you are expecting a baby girl. So we
Yeah.
just want to say congratulations
Yes.
on that. That is very exciting.
Thank
How
you.
How do you feel right now in this season, right? I mean, we know you're traveling, right now as well, leading worship at your church, also balancing your family, and now a new baby that is on the way. How are you balancing all of this?
That's so funny that you said that. I literally just had this conversation earlier today. Um, yes, all the things are good. The transformations and the traveling. It's amazing, and I truly thank God. But home is my first ministry.
Yes.
Yes.
My family is my first ministry, like above all else, like because at the end of the day, all of these things are going to pass away. All these great things, these opportunities that God has afforded me are going to be, null and void. But my family is going to always be there. So I have to make sure it just even now, like even the fact that I'm here, and I'll touch on it very briefly. Like I'm leaving tomorrow to go home because right now my wife is in the hospital, possibly about to deliver our daughter,
Wow.
Wow.
and she's only 5.5 months.
Hmm.
So she said, "Babe, come home." I didn't even think twice. I need me a ticket up out of here. The first thing smoking tomorrow. And
Yes.
and although like I said, I had an event here, I told them straight up, like, I'm not going to be that person to spew my hurt onto other people, because that's dangerous. And
Mm-hmm.
like I said earlier in the podcast, like you cannot pour from an empty well. And I'm currently in the process of being refilled. And my mindset is to get home and be there for my wife. I I don't care about the offer that they were giving me. I don't care about the event. Like when I heard that my wife said, "Babe, they're talking about taking our daughter like today or this week." I didn't even think twice. And that just goes to show, like, I don't, and there may be a listener on here with the wife, or even a husband. Like, do not allow the auspice or the glitz and glamour of ministry be your God.
Mm-hmm.
Do not, because that is a dangerous place to be. And I've seen it on so many occasions that families are broken. Families are literally destroyed because the drive of ministry drove a wedge in their marriage, drove a wedge in their children, drove a wedge in their friendships. I refuse to be that guy to allow me basically chasing a check, essentially, be the reason why I do not have a family at the end that I can go to.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I just, for you to come to terms and make that decision, right? And how you said that it was like, there was not a lot of thinking there. You know what I mean? You need to be home, and that's where you're going. And it's like, I know I had this engagement and this assignment, but this, that, and the third. I think that it's something that, again, people, they see they see the visual, they see, the songs, they see the collaborations, they see the platforms, but they don't see these things. And
Mm.
I think that, when you are chasing fame, when you are chasing notoriety, when you are chasing, the applause, right, that's when it becomes difficult. That's when it becomes, well, this is a really good opportunity, well, there's a lot of people here, or this is good, and again, like you said, these are the moments where, the enemy just takes advantage, right, and
Mhm.
and comes in to do what he does best, and that's destroy, right. And I love what you said. We will definitely be praying for you and your family, and I know that God honors these type of actions, right, and this character. God honors, yes, even when you had something planned ministry wise that you can't go to because of your home and household, and that's more important at this moment. I have to believe that God honors that, and that God is faithful to that word. A lot of people, when they think of ministers and they think of, pastors or teachers, they do have that I guess reservation of that is their life, that is
Mhm.
their number one priority, that is what they work for, especially when it's their livelihood, right.
Yeah.
And I, for one, I grew up in the church, and my dad, became pastor when I was only 12 years old. And all of those years, again, when people would see me and I would go and, do different things at different churches and events, they would see me. They would always look at me with like that face of sadness, like, oh, you're a pastor's kid. It must be so hard. And, again, that assumption that, your dad is not home. He's not spending time with your family. I hope you stay in the church and I hope you keep the faith and all these things. And I have to say, again, I'm very grateful that, I did have that dad who was a pastor, but also took that time for family, right?
Yes.
And I can say that he never put a second. And I understand that's not everyone's story, but I also understand that there are people out there like yourself who understand that value and that system and who honor it. And that is why, I think that is why there are those beautiful moments, right? So when you go and worship, when you get on that platform, when you lead worship at your church, it's just that much more powerful because you truly understand who you are and you understand, your position as a leader and as a leader in your home. And I think that's something that, should be recognized.
Now, Osby, we've reached the end of the podcast, and
already, man.
And is there anything you felt like you would like to say? Maybe there's something that God put in your heart that we didn't give you the segue to touch on or to speak on that you would like to share with our listeners at this moment.
Yes, I do. Listeners, if y'all have not followed the Miguel show, I need y'all to go ahead and quit playing and subscribe today. This is good stuff, y'all.
Yes, definitely.
Now, let's also give your social media handles and all of that to everyone so that they can follow you and, look all your stuff up on, I don't know if you're only on Instagram, if you're a TikToker, I don't know.
TikTok, I'm trying to make it a thing, but it ain't working out. But I am on Instagram and Facebook, Osby Berry. That's OSBYBERRY. Please, not Osberry. Because I get that a lot. It's not Osberry, it's Osby Berry. I'm also on YouTube as well. Same place, Osby Berry.
For sure. So listeners, be sure to go follow him on his social media. Check out his YouTube videos. He has some awesome worship covers, awesome worship moments, and just, even just candid conversations as well. So be sure to follow and support, and also just definitely, take heed to everything that he said in his conversation. And just, again, this is not just a moment. This is an atmosphere. This is a lifestyle that we create. So Osby, thank you so much for being a guest on our podcast. We truly appreciate it.
Miguel, Eddie, thank you guys again for inviting me. This has been absolutely amazing. So thank y'all for having me. I appreciate you guys.
Definitely. And listeners, thank you so much again for tuning in to this podcast episode today. We want to remind you again to hit that subscribe button so you can be notified when we drop a new episode. We have some awesome guests coming up, and definitely leave that rating, that review to help us out. We are so appreciative of all of our listeners and all of you who are joining us on this journey.
Osby, once again, we thank you for taking out of your time to be with us. We'll be sure to keep you and your family in our prayers. We have youth night today at church. I'm going to make sure that when the youth are doing their prayer moment, listen, I need you guys to lift up a special prayer for Osby and his wife and his beautiful baby girl who just need a little extra covering from the Lord at this moment.
Amen.
So
thank you.
So we thank you for taking out your time, and we thank our listeners for joining us on the latest episode of the God Life Culture podcast. That's God Life Culture. Until next time.
See ya.
Bye.